Today's podcast is brought to you by Patreon supporter Sean Sellers. If you'd like to learn how you can support the podcast through a small, recurring monthly donation, log on to schooloflaughs.com/PATREON. And we also have another sponsor.
If you're a really funny comedian who wants more laughs, more gigs, and more money, the Clean Comedy Conference 2017 in San Diego is just for you. You'll learn from successful, well-known comedians like Eddie Brill and Jimmy Brogan, as well as working comedians you may never have heard of who are making bank doing what they love. And they'll show you how you can do it too. More laughs, more gigs, and more money. The Clean Comedy Conference is October 13th through the 15th at the Comedy Palace in San Diego. It'll be jam-packed with workshops, panels, performance critiques, and plenty of networking and opportunities to perform. Registration is just under $120 when you use the code School of Laughs. But this offer ends soon, so don't dilly-dally. Register now at cleancomedyconference.com and use the code School of Laughs. And you're on your way to more of everything you deserve. More laughs, more gigs, and more money. Clean Comedy Conference brought to you by Brandon Young and Maria Herman. Offer expires September 15th.
Welcome to the School of Laughs podcast, brought to you by schooloflaughs.com. Whether you're an aspiring comedian, a part-time pro, or a speaker who wants to become funnier, this is the podcast for you. We'll break down tools, tips, and techniques to help you get bigger, better, and more bookable. And now, here's the show.
Welcome to the podcast. Rick Roberts here again. Thanks to the cleancomedyconference.com for supporting the podcast. I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. And to Sean Sellers, who's one of our Patreon supporters. If you are a Patreon supporter at the $7 a month or more level, you will be invited to the next Zoom Hangout on September 23rd, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. So noon if you're on the East Coast, earlier if you're somewhere west. But right here in Nashville, where I am, 11 a.m. Central Time, you'll automatically be invited, like I said, through the Patreon platform and through an email, as well as your Club 52 weekly email that you're getting at that $7 level. All right, what can I tell you about today's podcast? It's a pretty exciting show. Have you ever wondered about starting a comedy club from scratch? I mean, from scratch. Well, today my guests Luke and Scott both did that here in Nashville, Tennessee at Third Coast Comedy Club. They've been part of different improv backgrounds in different cities, different states altogether, moved here at different times but bumped into each other, struck a friendship, and then struck a pact to launch their own improvisationally based comedy club. A lot of big turning points in the journey, a lot of work, a lot of stress. You'll hear all about that right here in this episode. And at the end, stay tuned for a couple of big announcements about things happening right there at the comedy club that they started, Third Coast Comedy Club in Nashville, Tennessee. Well, I am here at Third Coast Comedy Club for the first time. I've been watching the progress going into this place online and through my comedy community buddies for quite a while. But it's pretty exciting to actually be in the space. I love the way it's set up.
It's good to have you here.
Hey, thanks a lot. And so just go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners really quickly. I'm going to get into how you guys met, and then we're going to talk about the progress of the club here.
Yeah, I'm Luke Watson. I'm one of the co-founders here.
And I'm Scott Field. I'm the one of the co-founders here as well. I guess that there's two of us.
So we're all present and accounted for. The meeting can start.
This is it.
Now, you guys obviously come from a huge improv background. Start, Luke, if you don't mind telling me how you got started in improv, and we'll pop over to Scott in a second.
Yeah, I think I got started around probably 2010 down in Atlanta with some folks that were performing all across the city, some at Dad's Garage, some other troupes. And we started a troupe called Orphan Improv just because it was a group of people that were all, from other troupes. And it was really neat to just jump right in. I had never had a class, so I was learning literally improv on stage from a host of how a game worked, which gave me a rush that I had never really had before. And so I jumped into it. I caught the bug real quick, got addicted to it, moved here in 2012, not planning to get involved with it, but just after about 3 months of living here was like, all right, I've got to find what the improv scene is here. And there were a couple troupes in town. There was, Music City Improv, which Scott
that
was
the
in.
group I was performing with.
And then another troupe. And but beyond that, I mean, that was really the only scene. There were just two troupes here. I joined one of the troupes for a while, and then pretty quickly missed one of the forms I did in Atlanta, which is long form. So, Whose Line isn't anyway that's short form. But the troupe in Atlanta, we were doing kind of envision like a play without a script.
Like a Herald type?
Yeah, that would be an example of long form. Yeah, for sure. And so I started LOL Nashville in, I think, 2013, just because that was kind of missing, as far as what I wanted to experience in Nashville. So created that for a while, and eventually, I guess we can get to how me and Scott came up with Third Coast, but that's how I got into improv in Nashville, at least.
Great. So you've been here for a little over 5 years or so. Yeah. Scott, did you grow up in the area, live here? How'd you get to Nashville?
I came here from Boston, and so this was back in 2004, and I had been performing with a main stage cast in Boston. The theater was Improv Boston, and I got started in 97. And I just signed up for a couple of classes. I never did anything in college, nothing in high school, no theater, no performing arts whatsoever, even after college. And then I guess I was, I want to say 30 when I started.
You were 30 in 97?
In 97.
Yeah.
That's
Scott's a lot older than
So you're 40 now.
I'm going to be 50, actually.
Going to be 50.
So I'm an old man.
You get good math.
Are you really going to be 50?
Yeah, this November. We should do something here. Anyway, I think one of the things that I kind of heard in what Luke was describing in the experience of being with some other people and then performing is it's pretty addictive. I mean, you get up in front of an audience that's laughing at you and that energy, and it's not something that's easy to just put down. So if you're with the right people, and I've been fortunate enough to be with the right people in Boston and later here, you can stay with it and you can keep doing it. And, generally your shows will be good as long as you're practicing and as long as you're with people that have some motivation to continue to improve. But so in any case, 2004, not a lot going on. I found a couple of people who had moved here from other places. And my partner, Emily Volman, and I started Improv Nashville, and we opened a theater on 12th South. And we had that place for about a year, no bar, and a very, very pared down operation compared to what Luke and I are doing now.
That was in the upstairs of that building? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's now a yoga studio.
It's pretty hot property over there right now, isn't it? Yeah. As is this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have this on 12 South. It would have
been a lot easier first 10 months for sure. This place shuts down at night. In any case, and then stepped away for a couple of years. Some of my friends kept doing it, and that's Music City Improv. And so then when Luke came into town, there wasn't a whole lot going on. Those guys were doing one show a month. So I think compared to like where we come from, Boston and Atlanta, their shows every weekend at some of the theaters there. So so now we have that here, thanks to this place. So.
Yeah. So you guys met in that improv group.
Well, we met LOL Nashville, which was the troupe I had started, and then Scott was the director of Music City Improv. They were doing classes, and we were doing classes, and we just figured it'd be better just to join forces. So we started a training center where both troupes were together, and Scott would teach some classes, I would teach some classes. Sometimes we would co-teach, which was also really great. Yeah. Scott's a teacher in real life, his big boy job by trade. Yeah. So we both had different teaching styles, which I think was really beneficial for students because they were able to see, there's so many different schools of thought with improv. One's not necessarily better than the other. It's just, you kind of have to take what works for you. So it was actually really, we don't really get to do co-teaching anymore, but I really miss those opportunities that we had.
Yeah, it was just fun. Plus we had a lot of students too. And so, more Luke than myself. We had a place in East Nashville that we did that was pretty stable in terms of availability for us to perform in. There's really not a lot of places for people to do comedy who live here in Nashville, especially improv, the kind of comedy we were doing, improv or sketch comedy. There's a lot of music venues, a lot of coffee houses, and a lot of bars. But we had a place called The Building, which is now a tattoo parlor. It was behind Drifters at 5 Points.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, across the alley from Beyond the Edge. And unfortunately for LOL, they didn't really have a reliably stable venue to perform out of.
Yeah, I mean, every month we were having to contract with a different venue, which I mean was neat. We were getting places like City Winery, Basement East,
12th and
the
Porter.
Basement, 12th and Porter. 12th and Porter, we actually had like a run for almost a year there, but it was every month.
But there were a couple of times. I remember one time in particular we were teaching, and he was just incensed that a show he'd been marketing. The owner called him and said, "No, we're not going to do you. We got a gig." A band.
Yeah, they had accidentally
they double booked.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
I thought it was just he picked somebody over your group because he thought they could draw a bigger crowd.
They double booked. I was just like,
okay.
I remember that moment that we walked out of class and I was so ticked off.
Yeah.
And that was really, I think, just the frustration. And then shortly thereafter, the owner of the building got out of the rental business. The people that had leased it, that were subleasing to our group, left as well. So then we were homeless and we just didn't have a place. And so I think it was out of that frustration. Look, there's no place that has a stage that's a theater-like space that really is just for improv comedy, and is just for people that live here in Nashville who do comedy. So that was it.
It was really neat to have that moment happen because I don't know who mentioned it first, but one of us said,
You did. You mentioned it first, and then
I was like, I'm gonna open a venue. I'm tired of having to, contract out each month. And then Scott literally goes, "Oh, I've been thinking about doing that too." And then we just looked at each other like, "Why don't we do it together?"
I had been teaching at this school in East Nashville that closed, and one of the guys who started this school was a real estate developer. And I had a meeting with him. I'm a little embarrassed about it. I won't go into detail because I'm not a business person. I'm kind of a novice at all of that stuff. So I presented my ideas to him. He was very patient. I don't want to say patronizing, but he was very patient and just kind of like, "Oh, that's very cute," a little pat on the head. But it was my effort to organize some thinking about like how something like this could work again, but maybe on a slightly bigger scale than what we had on 12 South. And so then when Luke just happened, like he was frustrated, just like, I'm going to open a venue. And I remember pausing. I was like, that's funny because I was just thinking about trying to do the same thing. I was getting a little frustrated with my group just in terms of, I felt it was very limiting. For example, we weren't auditioning people. There was a sense of like, we just want to do the same thing. And I was constantly meeting people and just wanted to kind of have that continue, but on a bigger scale. So
yeah, and it's hard to have a group that doesn't have a space to practice because then you're scrambling, and then not to have your locked in place to perform and promote your shows. That's definitely frustrating. So you guys kind of got your ideas together, and then I'm curious how many other places you looked at before you found this, or did you kind of find this early?
That was its own story.
Yeah, and we formed an LLC probably about a month after that conversation in the parking lot. We formed an LLC in February of 15. And shortly thereafter, we got a real estate broker and started sending him, places, parts of town we were interested in, what our needs were. Started looking, everywhere for places. It took a year to find, and we had along the way things were like, oh, this would be great, or it was either too expensive, or this would be great, and then it was already leased. So we had it was like a roller coaster.
And in the meantime, prices just kept going up.
Yeah, no doubt.
They were already not affordable for us, and it was like we'd fallen overboard and the boat was receding.
Yeah. And we were kind of almost ready to throw our hands up.
In fact, I had said, that's it. This is not going to happen. We're not going to find a space. Here's what we'll do. We'll put together some money and we'll produce a show.
Which I wasn't interested in because I was already doing that.
You'd done that before,
and that's why I wanted to. That's what I wanted to not do. I think I told you. Did I tell you? Give me one more week.
Yeah, that's exactly what you said. I was going to say. Yeah. And then Luke said, one more week. Just give me one more week, and then yes, because he was tired too. We were both tired. Him more so than me because he had availability to run all over the city with this real estate guy and also just look around. That
last week, I literally just started driving around, looking on even Craigslist, which is actually how we found this space. It was a sublease from
I'm a Gene and Willie.
I'm a Gene and Willie, the Gene company.
Yeah.
So where you're sitting right now, this is actually a jean factory. They had sewing machines all over. It was just literally a warehouse.
Electrical conduit everywhere, boxes of outlets hanging down from the ceiling.
And so I walked in, though. We immediately scheduled an appointment. Walked in. I was like, this is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I called Scott. I said, I found the place, but we've got to act quick. And we did it. When we acted super fast, had a lease drawn up. I literally had the lease drawn up and came and signed it before our real estate broker couldn't even come to the meeting. I just did it without him.
I'm going to let this sucker get off the hook.
So Scott and I came over here. We were like little school children. We're like taking pictures of us signing the lease. And it was very surreal at that
It was
moment.
very, because
happening.
it was surreal because we had no idea what was about to happen.
Yes. It was Act 2.
And that was February of 16. So it literally was a year. And then it took us, we started the build out process, which is a,
work.
Yeah.
Like it was just like emotional stress, anxiety, but just physical labor, like a lot of it.
And a lot of learning on the curve, I imagine. You're trying to save costs by learning some things on your own and then finding
Sometimes we were too cheap and then sometimes we weren't cheap enough. But fortunately, I like Luke is always saying, we made mistakes, but we didn't make anything that was fatal. Like we didn't make any fatal errors, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's a very complex process.
And because we got some quotes for people to be general contractors on the project, and literally some of them were like the lowest one was like $250,000.
It was like $228,000. I remember that guy because I remember looking at the quote and I was like, it was way beyond anything I could pull together. And Luke had some savings but that was it. He had some cash on hand. And so that's how, the dirty secret about small business is that it's almost impossible to get money unless it's just your own money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we did a
the
build out process. We did a Kickstarter, which was beyond anything we could think. Like the community really came together.
Do you remember what the numbers were on that?
It was almost 30,000.
Yeah,
right? 28
after the fees and stuff. I think it was like So.
And it was, I don't know. It's just really humbling to see. I think it 228 backers. So 228 people giving money. Some of them didn't even live in Nashville. Some of them were stand-up comics that, didn't even have like day jobs, didn't have much money, were giving money. And I think once we did that, it really inspired us. Like we have to make this work because we now knew the hard numbers of how many people we'd be letting down. And I don't know. I think that's what's kept us going. We've had a lot of times where we're just like, we're out of money or we're just tired.
This month last year was probably for us the most stressful because it's like, I don't know what to liken it to. It's like jumping from one side of a chasm to the other, and you're like mid-flight, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm already starting to pitch down. And it was just like, we were so far along the process that we couldn't turn back.
Right.
We were pot committed.
But we couldn't see where it was going to end, and we weren't sure that we were going to have enough money to make it to the end of it.
Yeah, the problem we had, our biggest struggle was our lease started when it was signed.
Mm-hmm.
So we were paying rent without
any income.
Open.
Right.
And we, towards the end of July last year, we opened August 17th for a soft open. We ran out of money, I think early August.
Yeah.
And so we were literally just floating. And
we were just ignoring bills.
Yeah. And then the city finally gave us our permit to open. And ever since then, which is, I think, I don't know what to attest
I know where
this
you're going.
to.
Yeah, this is
but we've
remarkable.
operated in the black since day one, meaning, every month we've never lost money, which is
cash flow positive.
Cash flow positive. We got tons of debt, but it's just amazing. Me and Scott, every week when we meet, we're just like, I don't know how this is happening, but we're not losing money.
Like even now.
Knock on wood, but it's
Yeah, exactly. So second dirty little secret is you do need to have some operating capital on hand to get through.
We did not.
So I'm going to retract an earlier kind of positive confidence statement I made, which was we didn't really make any big errors. I think the big errors were we just didn't have a lot of money, and then we didn't have any operating capital once we got open. So somehow we survived both of those things.
Yeah, we just found that turns out you can just go to a website for a credit card and just get another one.
How many did we open? We opened a bunch of credit
we have
cards.
7 or 8.
7 or 8.
They're all
cards.
maxed. But
And then and then everybody who we owed money to, one of the questions was, "Do you take credit cards?"
Let's get this out of the way.
We literally, shortly after we opened, we had one of the bills we had been ignoring was a large bill for our electricians for all the electrical work. Because since it was an empty shell, I mean, we had to get subs. We were the general contractors on the project, which I don't ever recommend doing. But
it saves you money, but
it's a pain,
you spend it in worry.
Yeah, but we had a huge electrician bill. We had no money. And we called him, and it was just a smaller operation. It was like, just a 2-guy company. And he's like, "Well, I don't take credit cards." And I was like, well, crap.
You're going to.
I literally walked his wife through how to set up a PayPal account so that we could split up payments among 3 credit cards. But from that day, that was our biggest struggle.
Mm-hmm. The irony is, last night I had a practice with Luke's group. It was the first practice I've had, like a legit practice for me on a personal level since we've opened this place.
He's been so busy.
Ironic. It's ironic that like I had a desire to like make a space. I mean, it's kind of selfishly so I could horse around and have some fun people to get on stage with and have an audience that's adoring and laughing.
I don't think it's selfish. I think we just had the purpose was for our groups to have a home that would also be a home for us. I don't think it's bad.
But once you get into it, the business is always a priority over anything that you want to do for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I think that's appropriate and that's fine. And hopefully I'll look back, God willing, I'm still alive in a few years. I'm so old, but I look back and I can say, "Oh yeah, I remember that time when I wasn't doing anything. Now I'm having fun in a space that my partner and I created together."
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, you're 50-ish. I'll be 49 in a couple of weeks here. So I'm with you on that.
Good. Yeah.
But I was thinking on the way over
but
here.
You don't feel like it. You don't feel that.
You don't feel it. And I was wondering, and you guys have kind of addressed it already, but I've thought about some different ventures in my life and I've done some of them, but something like this, I was thinking, man, that's going to make you grow up and, you're going to be an adult at a whole nother level, whether you want to or not. And that's not a bad thing after you get through it, to challenge just like in improv, how you challenge yourself to go kind of into the open space and find the goodness. I mean, you guys did that with the club. I mean, it's pretty amazing all the work that you've put into it and the growth you've had and being able to stay in the black since it's open and all those things. But that's a trust thing, like an improv trust, which you guys basically did between each other and with the business. So the goodness that you put into it has been coming back to you now that it's going. But you also are creating a space where the people that haven't had to grow up yet and put their cash on the line and mortgage their house, whatever you had to do, they can experience improv and grow into older people at some point too. So I'm just curious, sidetrack for a second. When you guys started improv in your respective places, were there people that had put things on the line for you that maybe you didn't recognize back then that now you're like, oh, they must have put some money up for that space, or
sure,
that kind of made it happen?
Yeah, I remember the Improv Boston Theater was an old hardware store at Inman Square in Cambridge. And it was basically started by a bunch of guys in their 20s who came from Boston University and Boston College. So they were college improv teams. And I remember we had a meeting with everybody that was involved in some of the shows with some really talented musical directors and one of the guys that was on it's a nonprofit, it remains a nonprofit. But basically the point of the meeting was, guys, we have a theater. So let's stop the whining and complaining. We have a theater, okay? Not everybody gets a theater in this town.
Right.
And we have one. So this is awesome. So appreciate it. I would say by and large, that's been the response of the community here that's been on stage. Everybody has a sense of gratitude and appreciation for what they've got. There have been a couple of people who I think don't get it. But honestly, that comes with the territory. There have been times when I've sort of talked myself into like, Scott, you just have to be the bigger person. This person has no clue what you've gone through, or Luke, to make this happen. And that's okay. I mean, there's just going to be a lot of clues.
There's always going to be a few that never get it. Right. Always a few. Sometimes a lot. But hopefully just a few.
We've been fortunate here that literally, when he says a couple, I mean literally just a couple of people. There's the community here has been, and we've had, our whole business model has been local place for local comedy put on by local people. So we've had some touring people come in that have, been on Netflix or whatever, but that's not our goal. Our goal is not to bring people in here that are touring comics. We want to give stage time to locals. And so we have producer meetings once a season. We have a season as our we have 3 seasons a year.
Every 4 months.
Every 4 months. 3 seasons a year.
Mm-hmm.
We had a producers meeting. We had 70 people come and pitch ideas for shows. And I think of those 70, like 40 had a show, something like that. I don't know the numbers exactly.
That got put on stage, yeah.
It was so humbling just to see that many people in the room that not just wanted to perform, but had like a concept and then had their own performers that they were going to bring on board. So many people wanting to get involved in the theater. That, and then also another moment, I think me and Scott just looked at each other and were like, this is why we created spaces. We have improv jams twice a month, where we've been averaging 40 people coming that they're not regular performers, they're not performing in other troupes, but they're just coming and a chance to play or just watch. And then we've got our weekly Roast the Host open mic, those are free things for the community that I think
comedy jam is also
mission
free.
Statement. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got Mark Anunson, who is doing a personal finance. He reached out to us and just said, you know what, I see a lot of comics who are really not managing their finances very well at all, and that's what I do professionally. So I'd like to do a presentation.
And me and Scott will be there.
Yeah. He's like, you should have had this in a different building before we found this building.
Where were you a year and a half ago? So in any case, I think one of it's not an explicit statement. It's not like on our logo or anything, but I think Luke and I are definitely, for our differences in personality and styles.
And age.
He's relentless over there.
I think
he's very alert for a young guy.
Huh? I'm sorry. We really do value the idea that that people will support each other, and we do really value the idea that this is a community of performers and comedians. We're happy to help people who are younger and ambitious enough to want to leave Nashville and go someplace else, like a true comedy market, and try to make it there. We would like to, I guess, be a stepping stone for some of those people. But if you want to have a family and a life here in Nashville, and you also have some talent and some energy to put into developing that talent, and you want a place to perform, that's kind of what we'd like. We'd like that to happen here, and we'd like people to feel welcome here. We want this to be a place where good quality comedy gets produced.
I think it's the biggest compliment is when you've got someone that you see start here and then go to either LA or Chicago or New York.
We've had a couple of people.
Yeah, we've had some people that have been been on television. We're starting to see people that have started here and then go on to other things, which is really cool.
And then in another 10 years, we'll see those same people come back. They're like, I give up.
Yeah.
The defeated.
They can teach the class on how dreams get broken.
You're poor, you're downtrodden.
Well, another cool thing you guys did this past year was host the big Broken Record comedy show. Now, how did that go?
We didn't know what to expect.
That was another thing. We just sure. We say yes, and then we figure it out.
Because that's 8 days of pure madness, right?
Yeah, and going what you just said, Scott, I think the fact that we're both improvisers has opened the door to a lot of just cool things that had we not said yes, we would never experience.
Right.
A lot of times we say yes and we figure it out along the way. But yeah, it was an 8-day thing, and it was nonstop, and it was crazy.
But Chad is such positive. Like, he just loves it. He truly loves doing it. I mean, I can't explain it. I would personally not like any of that. But
right.
But he moved in and made it happen.
And DJ too. The whole week they get no sleep for a week.
I don't know how they do it.
I mean, to your guys' benefit, they'd done it a few times already, so they kind of had the system in place, and they'd worked out some of the kinks. But then logistically, there were some new things happening here.
They do have it down to a science. I mean, it's very impressive. I mean, it's a huge. Yeah. They've got.
They do it.
Over, I think, probably 100 stand-up comics.
At least, yeah.
And they have to have 10 people in here all the time and 24 hours a day.
Our neighbors in the building.
The folks upstairs who have the 9 to 5 job, they were not happy at all. So
it worked out. Yeah. It all worked out.
Now we have a little soundproofing. So if you come back here, you're going to see some new things. Like usually it's because somebody complains about something or something breaks or something goes wrong, and we have to improve it. So that's how it works.
We make small improvements. But yeah, it was we now have the Guinness World Record for the longest variety show.
Multiple
I think it was a variety show
comedians.
this year. It was not
Yeah,
a
they
stand-up
switched
show.
it. Yeah, it's a brand new record. So yeah, I'm looking for. I
And-
need to find out where that plaque is. I want to get a.
Yeah, that should be right in the foyer.
Yeah.
Did you guys put in a foyer?
We didn't put. That was one of our biggest
vestibule.
mistakes. We have a vestibule. We don't have a foyer. We do have. I feel like you only have one fancy word room in the building, and we've got a vestibule.
Two fancy words would be
Pretentious,
too much.
yeah.
I think. Yeah, that's right. I agree.
It wouldn't hold the gravitas as of the previous statements.
That's another fancy word. You're pushing it.
So for people that are just finding about Third Coast the first time, just walk me through quickly what the normal weeknights look like here, and then the classes you guys offer. I'm sure there's people listening that would like to take some of those.
Yeah, we have a fantastic training center director in Mr. Tim Yeager, and so he is organized a whole series of classes based on his experiences at Comedy Sports and Improv Olympic. We've got some other people here from Chicago as well, who are very involved in teaching, and that's on Mondays and Tuesdays generally.
In the training center, it's not just which is fine to have classes where it's like, we're just going to have fun and make you fall in love with improv, which is what our level 1 is designed for. But Tim mainly has put a lot of work into creating a full curriculum so that by the time you graduate our training center, which is the only training center like it in Tennessee, it's also now the largest. We've got nearly 50 students right now. By the time you graduate, you will have the skills if you want to either get on stage yourself or start your own troupe or whatever it may be. So we're very proud, I think, of our training center right now, and couldn't have done it without Tim Yeager. But it's a really incredible program that we've got going on.
And that's Mondays and Tuesdays, and we may have to we'll have to cross that bridge later. But if it gets too big, we'll have to find some more space. Monday night is the roast the host. It's the after open mic. That doesn't start until 10. And then Wednesdays is either dark or we have our improv jam. And then we have shows generally Thursday through Sunday evening. Obviously, our primetime spots are Friday and Saturday. We feature mostly improv comedy shows, but we do have a number of stand-up shows that are produced and put together on this stage. We've had a couple of sketch shows, and we have a couple of variety shows kind of in the mix as well. It's every weekend.
And like I said, when I moved here, there were 2 troupes in Nashville for improv. Now I think there's 12. And nearly I think 11 of the 12 perform on our stage here.
That's awesome.
But I say that all to say the last 2 sketch shows we did were not on the weekend, and they sold out. We had 90 people in here for Skits and Bits, which was a lot of collection of sketches, and we had the Trump Show, which was a series of sketches, and both on Thursday nights sold out, which was, I think, shows that Nashville is definitely ready for more sketch.
Yeah,
so
next level sketch stuff.
We're trying to jump on that for season 4, which starts in September.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
And we're sitting on the stage, which is probably one of the better stages I've ever performed on or stood on. And we designed everything so that it would feel really easy to do shows on this stage. And it's not a big space. And so when we have 30 people in here, it feels very, very full. And when we have 80, the energy is
gotta be rocking, huh?
Incredible. It's incredible energy. Yeah, it's a really fun space.
Well, you designed it well. I mean, it's got the width you have if you need 5 or 7 players up for a game, or for the stand-ups, the intimacy is right there. The crowd's right up on top of you. It's nice.
We spent we had a lot of time to buy time as far as for designing the stage. The permitting process alone bought us a couple months to really lay out how do we want the stage and feel the space to be. And of all the minor mistakes we made along the way, I think our biggest non-mistake, our biggest success was the layout of the stage. The layout of the
theater. Yeah.
I think we did that right. This is probably the most intimate comedy. Well, it is the most intimate comedy venue in Nashville.
And again, I think that's a testament to how Luke and I have worked together. It was really, I don't remember ever really having a discussion about debating how it should look. There was a controversy about a color that was on stage for a while. However, I got over
to win those arguments, you just have to get Scott's wife on board with your idea, and then you're good.
And a little thing about Luke, just tell him something can happen if you want to use some reverse psychology to get him to do something.
That will work.
That works
actually,
good.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were a lot of lenders along the way that said no, or consultants that said no, or our friends and family were saying yes most of the time. But I think that a lot of people just were skeptical. And I think that if you've got a dream or a vision for something, find a way to make it work. If you fail, you fail. I think that, but you're never going to succeed if you don't risk failing. And so just risk failing.
I would think the other thing is you gotta find people to work with. So like I couldn't have done this without Luke. There's absolutely no way that I could do this by myself. I mean, he does so much. His energy is amazing, and he's very,
just
very
younger.
hardworking.
I'm just
He's got 20 years on me.
I think he added 5 years to us just in this interview. I feel a lot older myself.
This microphone's getting very heavy all the time.
It's over my eyelids.
It's my age.
It's nap time.
Sorry. But yeah, my quick advice would just be don't try to do it alone.
Yeah.
Definitely have a person that you're going to work with. I just think that makes you much more motivated and much more creative in problem solving. And also it's another person who could potentially bring some money, and money is very important.
And accept help. We had a lot of, even Scott and I could not have done this by ourselves. We couldn't have done it with the Kickstarter alone or our finances alone.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of people like Chris Hill who helped us build out the booths in the bar and a lot of other handy
Rich
projects
Sutlett,
that we couldn't have done.
Pitched in hours
Yeah.
and money too. Just
Yeah, he was
generously.
here almost every night.
Yeah.
So he would be, he'd be here with us till midnight. And we're like, you could go. We felt bad. But we had so many people that were offering to help. And had we ever said no or not taken them up on that, it would not be open. And so just accept people's help. Let them, if they want to help, let them help. I'm glad we did that because we wouldn't be open had we not.
That's true.
That's great. Well, we'll just leave it right there. I'm going to link to all of your social media on the show notes, your website, so people can find out more about you. And make sure I'll add a link there to the build-out process. You guys had some great video of what the space looked like as it evolved. Yeah. And that's always cool to see.
I do want to add one thing. We've
Sure.
got our 1-year anniversary coming up in September. I believe that show is going to be September 30th. So we're going to be putting together another video, another slideshow with a lot more pictures and video, but of just what the last year's looked like. So September 30th will be our 1-year anniversary officially.
And one other thing, there's a improv festival that that Luke and a gentleman by the name of Scott Elam have produced last couple of years. This will be the 3rd year. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be here, and that's in early November. So if people are traveling through, that's something to come and see. So,
awesome. Well, I'll definitely push those out and promote them too.
Got 10 more plugs. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, thanks, Luke. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate you letting me pop in today and check it out.
I'm glad you were able to see the space. Come see a show or
Glad
do a
you could
show
come over.
sometime.
We're going to talk as soon as we put the microphones down. I got some ideas already.
Oh, great.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Scott and Luke over there at Third Coast Comedy Club. Two guys doing a great job. And in fact, I told you at the front end that there's a cool couple of things happening at the club I want to tell you about. The first, September 30th, there's going to be a big 1-year anniversary party right there at Third Coast Comedy Club. I'll link to their website on the show notes so you can find out more information about that. But if you've never been in there, that's a great time to check it out. A couple of other great times to check it out. On October 21st, David Hooper, a previous podcast guest, he's all about marketing on the Red Podcast. We're buddies. We're here in Nashville. We're going to launch a podcast mini camp at Third Coast Comedy Club. It's going to be on that Saturday, October 21st, from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. We're going to talk about how to be a great guest, a great host, how to be a killer co-host, where to insert comedy in your show, and how to use improvisation as well with your guests to get more out of them. Again, that's going to be at Third Coast Comedy Club, October 21st. It's a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'll have more information about that in the show notes and in the newsletters that you guys get as part of the Insider Tip Sheet. What else can I tell you is going to happen at Third Coast Comedy Club? Pretty exciting, this news right here, gang. On Wednesday, November 1st, I'm recording a CD at Third Coast Comedy Club for 800 Pound Gorilla Records. If you want to know more about that, get tickets. I'm going to keep them really affordable so we can jam-pack that place and have a lot of fun. Just shoot me an email at schooloflaughs@gmail.com, or check out the show notes, or check out any link on schooloflaughs.com in the blog page. You'll find out more about it there. Love to see some people come out to that CD recording. And along with me that night, who's going to open the show, none other than Brian Bates, another frequent guest here on the School of Laughs, and as well as the guy who puts together all of the links to the news articles about stand-up comedy in the Insider Tip Sheet. Is that enough? Is that enough stuff going on? I mean, is it? Third Coast Comedy Club just blowing up, doing great. So check them out at their anniversary party at the end of September. Again, that's September 30th. You can check out the podcast mini camp October 21st from 10 to 4 at Third Coast, and my comedy CD recording. Other than that, just one more note about the Clean Comedy Conference that's coming up again in San Diego this year. It's going to be a beautiful place to have the conference. If you've never been there before, as a destination, San Diego is a great place. And the conference is going to give you lots of great tips on how to become a better clean comedian. Eddie Brill, comedian and former Late Show booker, will be on the panel, as well as Jimmy Brogan, who is the former Tonight Show booker and a writer for the Tonight Show. Tony Calabrese, very funny comedian, will be on the panel, as well as Trenton Davis. Francis De Lorenzo, who's very, very funny. Maria Herman, who's also the co-director of the entire thing, along with Brandon Young. Jeff Hodge, who's a funny comedian. Mark Christopher Lawrence, who's not only a comedian, but an actor. Amy Pittle will be on board. She's a former booker of cruise ships and Las Vegas shows, so she's going to give you insight onto what they look for. Eric Street, a reality show producer and comedian, will be on the panel as well. And Brandon Young, who is a co-director of the entire thing, along with Maria Herman, will be in there. So lots of great people giving you great feedback. You can log on to cleancomedyconference.com and go register. If you mention School of Laughs, you will get 20% off the registration code up to a certain date. So get in there now. Make sure you haven't missed it. Again, the cleancomedyconference.com, happening October 12th, 2017 through Saturday, October 14th in San Diego. Have a good one, guys. Stay safe and stay funny.
Thanks for listening to the School of Laughs podcast. If you'd like to hear more School of Laughs podcasts, you can find them on iTunes and Stitcher.com. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. For information on upcoming live and online classes, visit schooloflaughs.com. Until next time, stay tuned, stay focused, and stay funny.